Today we're going to talk about asbestos. Asbestos is a material that was widely used in many building materials which are still found around us today. While it's still in use in a few different materials today, much of its use was stopped in the late 1980s after research revealed the negative health effects associated with its fibers. Many people have heard that asbestos is bad for human health, but do not understand how or why this is the case. So, what is asbestos and where is it found? Asbestos is a name given to a group of naturally occurring minerals that are resistant to heat and corrosion. It's been used in products such as insulation for pipes, that is, steam lines, for example, floor tiles, building materials, and in vehicle brakes and clutches. Some occupations whose workers have historically been exposed include construction workers, demolition crews, shipyard workers, automobile technicians, and those who worked in factories that produced asbestos-containing materials. So, how is asbestos bad for our health? The International Agency on Research for Cancer lists all forms of asbestos as carcinogenic to humans. A carcinogen is defined as any substance or agent that tends to produce a cancer. The reason this mineral is a carcinogen is because of the effects its fibers have on human lungs. Asbestos is made up of extremely small fibers that are naked to the human, that are indiscernible to the human eye. These fibers can become airborne and stay suspended in the air. When they're breathed in, the fibers can make it past our body's natural defenses and get lodged into the tissues of our lungs. When this occurs, scar tissue begins to form, which reduces the function of our lungs. It eventually progresses to disability and death. Mesothelioma is a common deadly illness caused by exposure to these fibers. Sometimes the effects are not realized for decades after the exposure. So, what are the best practices that we can employ for working around asbestos? First, become familiar with what building products asbestos is found in and what it looks like. Knowing what to look for is important in order to avoid disturbing these materials. There are many materials in our workplaces that still contain asbestos to this day, but it's relatively harmless until it's disturbed in a way that creates airborne fibers. Smashing, breaking up, cutting, or grinding materials that may have asbestos in them is something you should never do. Creating dust through sweeping is another task that you should avoid if you think that there's any of the dust that's around that contains asbestos. Any asbestos-containing materials that are beginning to break down or flake need to be properly sealed or abated by professionals. Now, in summary, while much of the occupational exposure to asbestos in developed countries has decreased, there's still exposure all across the world to this carcinogen. Cases of mesothelioma are still being diagnosed in the United States due to exposure that occurred decades ago. So, protect yourself by not disturbing any material that could possibly have asbestos in it. Also, if you suspect that any place that you're working has asbestos in it, make sure that you address it to the proper person or persons who can send in a professional, take care of it. It's not something you should have to deal with yourself. It should be dealt with by a professional, by an abatement professional. Hopefully this will be a good thing for you to be aware of so that you can make use of the information and do everything you can do to keep you and the rest of the people around you safe.